All right, so if Ohio, that whole situation over in Ohio bothered you, this is most definitely gonna bother you as well. Crazy thing is this is new news, but it's not new news. You should have heard about this 4 months ago. It's absolutely insane. Nuclear, toxic, radioactive leaks, and people are not being told. With some people thinking in that area, it's probably too late. Had they known, they would have got the heck out of there. Crazy information you guys should know about coming right up. If you guys are brand new here, welcome to our awesome community where we do prepping tips, emergency preparedness how-tos, and we go over news that could affect you like this. If you find value in that, be sure to hit the notification bell so you guys can stay up to date. Let's jump into this one. So no kidding, a community member wrote in and gave me a list of informational sites to look over to validate this, and it is indeed true. The crazy thing about this is it seems like they are responsible for notifying the public. Guess what? It happened 4 months ago. It's looking like a few more news agencies are picking up on this and reporting this. ABC News. I have community members writing in very mad. I try to be civil, man, but a few choice words for the government and these companies. Now you have to worry about drinking radioactive water. Ain't that lovely? I'm telling you guys, this is a big deal, and the fact that we're supposed to be notified of something like this, and we weren't, we're going to go over that. Also, according to someone who has military family members who follows someone who used to be a senior technologist of the U.S. Army, when you have a radiological leak, you are supposed to hear the sirens. Nuclear sirens go off, and it didn't happen. Funny how that works. And they're referring to a siren that sounds something like this. Yeah, nobody heard anything like that. It might not be the exact siren, but there's supposed to be a loud siren like that. It goes on to say that that is the sound that is supposed to play when you have a radiological leak of any type from a reactor. Not just from ICBMs, missile attacks, or nuclear attacks of any type. It's for radiological leaks because radiation and nuclear is like the biggest red flags and would warrant not only a federal government response, or should have, but also as an international response from the world. It's that serious. No one heard any sirens. In fact, no one heard anything about it until 4 months later. So I feel really bad for the folks that are in this area. A lot of red flags, a lot of warnings, and a lot of threat that people are feeling right now. So stick with me on this because this is crazy. This is what NBC News is finally putting out to everybody because there's communities out there that are hearing about this for the very first time.
Surprised by a massive radioactive leak from a nuclear plant that they are just now hearing about, even though it was first detected months ago. We are talking 400,000 gallons of contaminated water, and it happened at this plant because of a broken pipe. Now, that leak was found in November of last year, but the public is only finding out about it now. The nuclear plant is owned by the company called Xcel Energy, and both the company and the state are working to try to clean up the contaminated water. Now,
can you believe this? And people are hearing about this for the very first time. What about people's wells? What is in this radiological nuclear power plant leak that's going into the ground?
Now, the water is said to contain radioactive tritium, which is a form of hydrogen and can occur in water naturally at extremely small amounts. But per EPA regulations, 20,000 units of tritium can be in drinking water per liter. But the water right now at the plant is in the millions.
So, of course, like everything else, all these toxicities, we can have a certain amount, a certain percent in our drinking water, right? I guarantee you go to other countries, they're going to think about this a little bit differently. Here in America, we can have high levels of stuff that maybe other countries would say you can't have it all. That goes along with about everything else that we've been hearing lately too, right?
Is in the millions. And here's a look at the location of this plant. It's very important. It is in Monticello, Minnesota, right there along the Mississippi River. Xcel and the state say they are actively working to contain this leak to that plant.
Of course. Has anyone been picking up on this? All of these toxic scenarios happen to happen right next to a river or a water source. I'll probably not guarantee you that that's just another coincidence. I feel like this is a huge deal and people need to be hearing about this. So share this out, but let's get a little bit more information on this.
NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa to break it all down for us. Maggie, bring us up to speed here. The fact that this leak happened in November of last year and people are just finding out about it right now seems pretty alarming. What do we know about the nature of this leak?
Yeah, it's so jarring for people in that area, Gotti, as you know. So we'll just start with kind of when specifically, since that's a huge part of this headline. This was discovered, Excel says, on November 22nd. So think back, that's a couple days before Thanksgiving. And the company says it immediately took what they called swift action to contain this contaminated water to the plant site, which again is in Monticello, Minnesota. That's just northwest, about 40 minutes northwest of Minneapolis. They also say they told the state immediately that day, the state of Minnesota confirming that they got notification. They say in late November, and both the state and the company, all the agencies involved say at this point, there is no evidence to show that drinking water in that area has been contaminated. But, Gotti, I got to be real with you. Also, no one is saying why the public wasn't notified as soon as this was discovered, which, again, as you said, is a key question because this is so alarming for people to hear about now. Gotti.
Would you guys agree that this is definitely something that the public needs to be aware of? And I'm sure that some of you out there have some logistics about this in what they're supposed to be telling us. Put it down in the comments below for us, and they're telling us that nothing has been found, everything is safe. Well, where have we heard that exact same line lately? And we're finding out the falsehood of that as well. The sad thing is the folks in this area, and who knows, downstream of that monstrous river, radioactive waste. Now, what do you think? Do you think it probably hit that river? I mean, they're on the river. And like I've told you before, when it comes to rivers like that, goes way downstream. People irrigate their crops with this water. Me personally, I'm seeing red flags all over the place. There's more.
But the cleanup is still happening, right? How contaminated are we talking? We were just showing that video from the helicopter there. You can see that the plant is very big. The town of Monticello seems to be a little ways off, but the plant seems to be right there on the river.
Right, right. Well, basically what they've told us is that at least to a layman, this seems like a painstakingly slow process. Again, we talked about 400,000 gallons of this severely contaminated water. Excel says it has been, I want to get their quote right, pumping, storing, treating, and reusing the contaminated water while monitoring nearby wells to make sure this isn't leaking into drinking water. But they point this out, and this is important. They say recovering all of this tritium that leaked, and again, 400,000 plus gallons of water, recovering all of that will take about the next year. Gotti.
Wow. And one more question. The plant, I know, is pretty old. It was built in the 1970s, 1971. Is that a concern here?
You know, it's something that's been mentioned. The company has yet to say whether it's a concern. The state has yet to nail that down as well. But basically what it means, if nothing else, is that Excel Energy has spent reportedly tens of millions of dollars updating the infrastructure of this plant, updating its testing systems, including installing what they called a new groundwater monitoring program, an advanced program in 2007 that they say was part of an updated requirement at the time. Again, whether that has anything to do really concretely with this broken pipe, meaning whether the age of the plant and all the updates that have been needed over time, whether that has anything to do with or caused this leak, that question also at this point yet to be answered.
Look, guys, do you see the river right next to them? Like, we're talking about them monitoring wells, nearby wells, but the town is a little ways away. But what about the river that's right next to there? If this stuff is getting into the river, then that means it's traveling downriver and seeping into other people's wells. That's a very high possibility. And at this rate, given the Ohio scenario, I would say outside testing sources would be key in this situation.
Wow. And just to recap, a radioactive cleanup that could take a year. Maggie, thanks so much.
With how things are going these days, I'm not buying the cleanup. And when it comes to the state, like they reported it to the state. So I would say that the state is also responsible for this. I would think if there was one corrupt entity, the state would have to join them because the state should also be stating the concerns to the communities and those people of that state. Do you guys realize that this is just upstream from Minneapolis? You know what we're learning? There's no accountability with these people anymore. Apparently the right people in the upper umbrella are in charge. And when stuff like this affects us, the people, well, there's just no accountability. So the way this is laying out is they wanted to make sure that they had a leak that was worth telling the public about. They wanted to make sure that there was proof in the pudding that this was really happening. So 4 months ago and 400,000 gallons later. So in case you guys are wondering what the president of XL said, this is what he said. If at any point there had been concern for the public safety, we would of course immediately have provided more information. Chris Clark, president of XL Energy Minnesota, North Dakota and South Dakota, told CBS. So reading into this story more, layman's terms, they noticed that there was a leak. They didn't totally know where the leak was, is what they said. They definitely tested tritium in the groundwater, and then not until they started testing it in even further groundwater, further away, did they decide, okay, it's more of a concern, let's let the people know. 4 months later, almost a half a year. How does that make you feel? And at that rate, being that close to the river, if it's traveling down through the ground and it was located in one area and now they're finding it all the way over here in another area in the groundwater, what do you think's going on with a flippin' river right next to them? I am sure that this is a bigger deal than what they're making it out to be, right along the lines of them not wanting to tell you about it for 4 months. Radioactive pollution in the ground, possibly affecting people's drinking water, possibly getting into that river. I didn't think it was important enough to alarm the public until 4 months later. I can't get over that, guys. It drives me insane. Like I said, from a couple emails that I got, it sounds like they are liable to let people know about a leak like this. Why did they not shut down the radioactive plant when they found it the first time? They kept it going. It kept on spewing into the ground, most likely. It's reached who knows how far. Like, how many side organizations is testing for this? Is it all funded by them? Because that's where we get the best results, right? Oh, everything's looking great. By the way, we funded the testing facility. I'm telling you, this is something that you guys need to keep on your radar. This stuff is getting worse, and you guys got to keep your eyes wide open, head on a swivel. Otherwise, you're going to get caught off guard, and you guys might get poisoned. And that's the scary baseline truth about the thing. I sure in the heck hope that there's outside sources that are going to be testing for this. And I hope that they're testing the water in that river because they're right on the river. I mean, just think, if it's traveling through the ground and reaching further away destinations and contaminating other groundwater, don't you think it's probably reached the river by now since it's right next to the river? I try not to get so aggravated about this, but this type of stuff drives me nuts. Anyway, guys, look down in the comments. There's a lot of useful, helpful people in our community that know a lot more than I do. And a lot of times they put very useful stuff down there. So be sure to read through the comments, see what people are saying. As I know more, I will keep you guys posted. If you missed this video I did just the other day, another big eye-opener. And if you missed this video right here, you might want to watch that one. Keep prepping, keep learning, keep doing, guys. We'll see you on the next one.